Okay, my friends, this is Geo Kuffner here, live right now at McGolrick Park in Brooklyn, one of my favorite parks where I've recorded the Spring Qigong series. And today we just had big rains last night, and so it's a little cooler today, but we have a very lush green. And if we're lucky, we'll have some kids and maybe happy dogs run by during this talk. I'm going to try to give some more context for the Spring Qigong series, but I'll try to keep it pretty short here. Max 15 minutes. We'll see how well I do with that. And this is a great spot too. You can't see it, but I'm right next to a playground, so there's always kids over there running around, and even a couple there today. And they'll jump, skip, climb, hang. Even today's kids off the off the phones and screens, they get out there and they run around. Springtime of life, great examples of that buoyant, fresh, pliable, spontaneous and innocent, not in the sense of guilt or innocence, but that sense of freshness, newness, easy that, just things are new. It's easy as we go through life to lose that sense of how every moment is fresh because been there, done that. Our concepts of the world are sometimes stronger than our just openness to whatever arises in our awareness. So, that sudden discovery of a kid seeing a ladybug, or running to say hello to a new dog, in a way that summarizes the spirit of healthy, what we call wood chi. Okay, yin and yang wood chi, liver, gallbladder chi. So we have that through our whole life. We express it differently. So when we're older, even in our later years, we still have the energy still fresh. Okay, and how our system receives that energy and how we share it or feel it can change a lot in time. All right. So, with that said, 4 seasons Qigong, or, seasonal Qigong, is, much older than our modern time, right? Where it's coming out of eras way before our current technological society. It's coming out really before even agrarian society, because what we're looking at is our biology. So seasonal Qigong is how our organism handles naturally, not, we don't have to think about it. Our temperature is being, striving for a degree of homeostasis, regardless of, is it cold out or hot out, but how our organism interacts with the larger environment, and within our organism, how the many, this incredible chemistry set that we call, life form, is regulating itself or dealing with internal and external factors. So it's a very profound study, and our goal, is to make it simple enough, clear enough, so that we can practice it without having to be, PhD scientists, or yogis who spent 20 years in a cave, becoming water. So So our basic orientation in this tradition and many traditions is more a 4 or 5 element. Sometimes you see a 6th element included as something like consciousness, or that's subsumed within all of the elements. And we want to make it very approachable. So there's all season Qigong, all season Qigong. And that's really the general application of supporting the bodies, the organisms, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually, whatever that might mean to you, um, levels, right? And there's also what we see as 5 element or 5 wisdoms, or I like to call it 5 powers, Qigong, and just in general, life experiencing. And so, many, many approaches to this question. All right. Now, in the seasonal Qigong system that I'm presenting here, it's definitely a marriage of some different streams, nonetheless, consistent in principle, that we're working with the arrival of this energy of growth. Okay. So it's not, I mean, if you live in a 4-season climate, you get to see these in a very, very distinct ways. And so there is a bias, you could say, to the climate I'm in, the Northeast of America and a lot of China. And I would recommend spend a year in one of those climates to just practice Qigong through the seasons. It's so distinct. Nonetheless, our organism has principles, whether we're in a desert or we are, living at high altitudes, or we're living up in, far, far, Scandinavian or Alaskan climates. So it's more like the adaptations that you'll do in different places will change um, and vary according to that environment. So you might refine your practices for where you are. Nonetheless, to train in the elements and work with the systems will give you a lot of internal understanding and capacity. So all season Qigong is, you'll see often in these classic forms like 8 brocades, or, in my case, I love the Hunyun Qigong system as an all-season Qigong that has very deep benefits. And then we have practices that are specifically for a particular season or a particular, more organ level harmonizing. So that's what places us into this spring Qigong. And so with the spring, just think of trees, or observe your own life, right? At some point, you come down to a jacket more this thick, right? Winter jacket goes away. I recommend washing it before you put it away. um, and you're into lighter jackets, you're into sweaters. The heat in your place is maybe turned down, or it's not on all the time. You see those changes. Maybe you get different cravings in foods you eat. Often in the spring, people will get cold, right? They'll get, because your body is trying to flush things out. You're trying to flush things out. So 2 ways to help you is think about a tree, okay, and the cycle a tree goes through, very similar to the energy that our body is waking into. We need to, we're coming into blooming. We're shaking off the winter. Energy that was more turned inward to, say, heat our body, to keep us warm, and maybe turn inward to nourish the seeds in our life. Wintertime, you want to sleep a lot. You need to stay warm. Um, and a lot of times we're surviving winter And we are using that time, the sleep and the inner, to nourish the seeds of our lives, the essences of our lives. And then there's this moment where those shoots come up, and we are growing new pathways. We are taking what we learned and we are moving out, again, more into action. Now, historically, the hunt is on, or it's really time to sow the field. It's time to gather and move forward. So, in that sense, we are moving into action. Also, we need to nourish the parts of ourselves that are going to be called upon. So we have that nourishing side and that expression side uh, to to um, to have happen. So, but first, often it starts with that cleanse, detox, which is the body needs to go from keeping us warm to bring us into action, and eventually, in summer especially, cooling us. So it's a big metabolic job that we have, a big metabolic job. And so, how do we get rid of the excesses and all that the body does to keep us more in a state of warmth and that the cozy vibes, that come with a, of course, bias towards a four season, but that feeling in your life where you're going inward and the changes that can happen internally. So, so really, we want to look at metabolic level. What's happening metabolically? How do I support those changes in the metabolic level? Secondly, is really that functional. You could look functional level. What am I going to be doing in spring? Right, more active. Maybe I'm starting back to sports, or old days where we're getting ready for the hunt. And you got to get back into that kind of fitness level. And so key is to progress. So we want to progress. Don't rush into, don't run the marathon before you've actually gone on a long walk. Don't go play 3 hours of basketball before you've just, loosened your body up and started jumping a little bit and hopping. Or, in my case, in my advice, rehab is a huge part of our Qigong journey as we find places that are stronger or weaker. So we have that functional level. And then we have this emotional level, which, you know, we've gone inward, and now we're going to be coming back into community, now more in relationship. And also, there's often in these systems a lot of stagnation, as we got to move outward. And there's a big part of we want to carry out our activities. And what we run into are, on the side, it could be irritations, frustrations, annoyances, and maybe even patterns of anger come out as we're trying to carry out our actions or trying to have the kind of flow of our life that we want to have, right? So if we have stuck heat in the body, or a lot of little stagnations, or, right up to like kind of arthritic patterns, what we're trying to do with this system is to support the body in getting rid of excess heat, getting rid of the stagnations, that maybe we needed in winter, or, we may have old patterns there. Get rid of those things so that we can move into more action, connection. Also, we want to open through the joints. We want to move through the muscles, the ligaments, the tendons. Again, the example is, all right, we may not be running and jumping around like a kid who has this in abundance, hopefully, but we want to be able to easily move into action, stand, sit, walk, um, feel like we can carry out our aims. On the emotional level, we want to be able to work with any patterns of anger and irritation, and they're not bad or wrong. I'm a New Yorker. You got to be able to have a little spat. You got to be able to have a little release of energy, and those things are not bad, wrong, evil. But we want to bring those energies into usefulness, and so in that sense, anger can transform into this very empowered, clear, assertive capacity to move forward and to work with our situation. Just think, the kind of energy and directness you need in certain sports or in hunting, or just, getting things done in a way that doesn't feel stressful, that you're able to actually, or it's that healthy stress where you're able to really act, move forward. And then when you hit obstructions or difficulties, which are inevitable, that you're able to use that constructively, either not suppress these things and fester, and not, you know, fall into crazy anger, irritation, frustration patterns that are actually harming you. So in that sense, we want to use humor. We want to use our sense of breath. We want to tune ourselves so that we are resilient and pliable, just like you see a tree, right? A tree, why do their branches move in all different directions, right? They're working with their situation in the forest. The trees aren't out there complaining and getting irritated. I don't know, maybe they are. I don't understand their language, but they're very much working with the situation. And with the also, so we're looking at what is an abundant, healthy, um, spring, wood, liver, gallbladder, chi is this ability to really flow. It's smooth, and you have a base level of kindness, in the sense of you're abundant in your ability to work with situations. All right. And that's almost like you look at a tree, like look at its generosity. It has this, it's sharing its opening, sharing its fruits, sharing its environment. So, that's not to be used to judge ourselves or others, but it's more to encourage that relationship and bring to mind this very healthy, abundant. And so, forest bathing, be with very healthy trees. You know, find a diet that um, has you feeling good and flowing, and you can feel it in your joints. And deep level, when we look at the liver, in this liver qigong series, and let me close out with a little overview on that. What's our goals here? Again, we're using movement, we're using breath. You can bring in that sense of imagery, or just place yourself in an environment where you have that abundant green, blooming feeling. We have even, in some traditions, they use like the goddess or the god of the forest, or the Buddha of the forest. And that's to connect us with capacities. All right. So in the first series, we focus on waking up, cleansing and detoxing, connecting. All right. And in that sense, we want to get movement through the channels. We got to get movement through the organs. We want to have a sense ourselves of what that looks like and feels like. All right. Second set I call summoning spring. And that's more about how we're receiving this energy arising, and how, as it does flow and open in us, we are coming into greater capacity and harmony. And the third set is more about expression and action. Okay. It's more about extending and more about really working through, especially you'll see our lateral side of the body and this fuller, expansive movement. All right. So you got quite a lot in this material. And the massage protocol here is also, like, can be a standalone practice, or you can take little parts of it. Right? I choreographed these in a way that really felt to make a lot of sense to me. And you can cherry pick from it. You can use parts of it, combine parts of it. And if we were doing live class series in this, course, you'd get a lot of feedback, but we would also explore how to kind of flow through all of these together into a nice class. But um, I'm really grateful to have come to this study, and thanking my teachers for that. And you'll see, and I name names a little bit in the write up, but this is coming out of a nice bit of research, experience, feedback, exposure. So I hope you enjoy it. Use what helps you, explore it, and feel free to share feedback or questions. And I'm sure over the years I will update this version. And as I get my my tech and video skills better and better. And of course, if you're in the area, you can come see me anytime, and we'll work on these at a little more therapeutic style, and we can bring some insight and deep healing qualities deeper into the work. Okay, that's it. And very best. We went over 20 minutes, but hey, what can I say?